Hi there, and welcome back to Channel Zero X. This is Michael Andon, co-creator of Mortal Worlds, with my wife Caroline.
Hey
Hi,
guys.
hey, Caroline. We're going to talk today about how Mortal Worlds has been influenced by several different types of medium, including real life discoveries in the frontiers of science. This isn't a science fiction book as such, it's science fantasy, but I do like to wonder sometimes about what ideas could be brought up when kind of new discoveries are made or announced that really seem to kind of like rock your imagination, make you wonder, wow, is this the universe really that kind of like crazy, or funded on
Or impossible.
founded on, yeah, on kind of almost magical principles. They may not pop up in your everyday life,
That's
but
very
it's,
Alan Moore, isn't it?
yeah, well, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, Warren Ellis, there's a lot of writers in there who really kind of like to remind us we are on the cutting edge of everything we ever knew. I mean, one of the most recent discoveries that have kind of like really made me think this is quite an awesome discovery is that recently, I think it's not too far, I think it's in Greenwich, not too far from where we live, uh, there was the discovery, or the proving that the double slit experiment, where they seem to be able to prove that atoms act differently when they're observed or not, they turn to waves, this
Oh,
kind
you
of
mean the
stuff.
particle and wave thing? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's Greenwich is 10 minutes up the road from us, the Meridian, literally.
uh, yeah. Let's not dox ourselves, but yeah, we have uh, we have this laboratory. I believe that I think it was in 2006, but it was only recently I read about it. They discovered that these particles actually seem to be able to read your mind, actually know what you're going to do before you do it. It's
Bit
kind
like
of,
Rizar in Mortal Worlds, really.
well, it's a nice segue. I think Raza isn't so much of a mind reader itself, but it does employ minions who have that ability, or they may have access to that kind of technology. It's a bit rough and ready. It's not perfect, but just as the good guys, they start experimenting with this kind of like newly discovered or rediscovered ability, or some of the characters at the same time. The enemy Rysar and its siege legions. There are some of them who are kind of like not so much foot soldiers as more kind of psyops. They're into the mind, they're into psychology, and how they can break the enemy or manipulate the enemy into defeat by guessing their every move, but also,
Plus the Seeker Mind Probe.
yeah, this exactly it. There's this mind probe, which is unfortunately for Rysar, it is actually in the hands of a being who is only very loosely affiliated with it. They've got a common enemy, which is like Heroes the Slayers, but uh, they've kind of developed this technology, which to us is in its infancy. Perhaps it will never come to pass, really. But this idea that we're not the only beings, or even life itself is not the only beings that are sentient, or something of its equivalent. That's crazy. In a way, you might even say that they've kind of like they've discovered the closest thing to aliens that we've ever seen, and it's something that I guess the news and the mainstream media, they just can't talk about it, because like where do you go from there? The audience may actually just lose their minds a little bit, a lot of them, if they think, well, if every atom that's made up of, or my wardrobe is made up of, actually knows what I'm doing. I don't think that's not really what they're saying, but it's something akin to that. It's
It's an
something akin to,
implication, though, that if you take it to its fullest
yeah.
logical
That
conclusion.
this may sound all crazy enough, but the reason why it seems to have been looked into and explained this way seems to be that the atoms, they change their tune, if you like, they change their appearance before a person has even decided
But
to.
how have they measured that?
They've measured it. They imagine the best equivalent, they say, is like, imagine an atom is dressed a certain way when it leaves its home, and it's going to travel somewhere. Let's say, to it's traveling the equivalent of like a distant star,
As a
and it's
metaphor.
travel. Imagine it's like wearing the special kind of astronaut suit, and it's green, and it's streamlined or whatever, and it's it's very distinctive, and it's got emblems all over it. It's you can't mistake it for anything else. It's maybe got an
And then I
insignia.
look at it and it changes
Yeah,
completely.
yeah, and it basically it will retain that appearance if you don't mess with it, if you don't look at it. when it gets home, when it gets to its destination, it's still wearing that
So what
same
happens if
astronaut
everybody,
suit.
if 100 people look at it?
That's well, I don't really know. I haven't really thought of that far, but I don't know how many people they've got, who are involved in these things. But I can imagine it's plenty.
Sorry, I always ask rubbish questions.
Well, let's say if the whole world was looking at it, would it affect it any differently than one person who's looking at it?
That was the point. That's what I was.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that it would generally assume it doesn't really matter to it what you're all thinking, whether you're all in tune with each other. It just matters that whether anyone's looking at all. So whether it's one person or the whole world, it basically changes his get-up. It's almost like, I don't know whether it'd be trying to disguise itself or something. And, so it ends up in a completely different suit. It's dressed like Charlie Chaplin by the time it's, reached the other end of the destination. You say, well, why is that? Even if it changes, why is that a big deal? The big deal is that if it's its destination that it's getting to, you might have, let's say, there's an atom waiting to greet it there, who is actually, coincidentally, the atom doesn't know it. The atom hasn't been shown that it's Charlie Chaplin who's wearing, it's another atom in a Charlie Chaplin suit. You've fired that off, that atom that's dressed as an astronaut, towards its screened off destination. There's no way that it can know, as it's hurtling along, who's inside the house, how they're dressed up. So let's say as soon as it reaches its house, literally goes through the door, guess how it's dressed up as it's, goes into the door. Let's say you open the door, the astronauts arrived, and you're expecting it to be in this kind of like, silvery suit or green suit or whatever.
Charlie Chaplin.
It's dressed as Charlie Chaplin. And you say, well, how do we know that it hasn't just like automatically dressed up as soon as, you've seen it?
We're losing the metaphor. I'm losing myself.
Yeah. But this is the thing, whether or not it's kind of like instantaneously changes itself or something, it's a kind of mind-boggling idea that these things actually seem to act not like, marbles that you'd roll around on the floor and, they've got weight and momentum and stuff, but they're not alive. They're not going to react like as if they know that you're there or anyone's there. They're just going to do their own thing. They react. So these particles, they act literally in terms of like how the observer looks at them. You can't force them to, just like dress for, if you like, for want of a better word, however you like. There's limits, such as like when it's the person at home, however you dress it or whatever to receive it.
So are you able to talk about how all this stuff affected this beautiful creation that you've got?
Well, here's the big thing
These beautiful characters, lovely ships.
I'm gonna say, but I'll be literally 2 more seconds on this. But this thing goes even further than that. What they don't just restrict themselves to firing off a particle in the laboratory. They'll say they might have an open window or something. They'll let a particle from the other side of the universe, from like millions of years ago, from light years away. So remember, any light that reaches you from a star is millions of years old.
Yeah.
So they'll do it with an atom from then. So that atom has been there long before even like whoever is, the equivalent home receiver atom, the host of the house, wherever you've dressed it like that. It has traveled all that time. No, listen. So let's say it's still dressed as Charlie Chaplin. So it could be dressed as literally anything. This star from millions of years past that has reached us for another, like how stars are, when you look at them, they're millions of years old. So the light that you see from them are millions of years old. When the atom reaches the sensory equipment, when it's pointed at the star, that photon is millions of years old. So in all that time, basically, it has dressed up as Charlie Chaplin.
Millions of years before the perceiver.
Yeah, millions of years before you've even thought about dressing your own as Charlie Chaplin.
But then that's that heavy concept that everything's occurring simultaneously, which I can't envisage in my actual head.
We can't envisage it, but it's been dealt with in loads of movies, and I guess a lot of classic books too. This idea of the fourth dimensional world as opposed to just 3 dimensions.
Like Zach's fourth dimensional chess.
Well, a lot of people say Zach plays 4-dimensional chess, I think, because it's like it's a big strategy. It's like he's always one step of the game.
Yeah, I was just joking.
But even if we are living in a solid block universe where everything that has already happened, everything that's going to happen has already happened.
Or is happening.
Yeah, a lot of people get worried about that idea because they think, well, where does that leave free will? What worth is our lives?
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I really believe in free will.
And I think what they generally say back to you is, don't worry about whether you've got free will or not. You will never feel as though you don't have it. So don't let facts get in the way.
But the point is, once something is a fact to a degree where you do believe it, like this is a house, this is a light, then of course it's going to drive you crazy if you realise I don't have free will.
Only if you think about it in those terms.
Well, this is a thing. This is a good point to say about Mortal Worlds, because it really is the free will versus that
let's
which
say
seeks
you
to be
grab
everything.
a drink of water. Yep, go ahead.
No, sorry, you always do this to me. I've lost my train of thought now.
Well, listen, I'm just going to say something like, let's say if you decide to grab a drink of water, we never much worry about it. It's our body that's making us feel thirsty. And said, Caroline, your body needs water. You just kind of instinctively grab it and drink it and enjoy it or whatever. And even the act of enjoying it, whatever, is like, it's not just I'm deciding to enjoy it. You're allowing your body to enjoy it, if you like. So we don't have a lot of problems with our bodies telling us in a way what to do. If the body's in pain, we may kind of like try to, ease it or scratch it or whatever. Again, we don't think I will do that. You just kind of do it.
Well, no, that's an autonomic function.
Yeah, an autonomic function. So let's say if everything's an autonomic function, it's just that you're not aware of it, then why is that a bigger deal? It doesn't really change your life anymore in terms of like what you're able to do. It's just maybe changes how you feel about it in a way. But if you also like, it's quite beautiful. Well, I think that the whole act is like a beautifully written book. It has drama, it has humor, it has
Mortal Worlds.
No, Mortal Worlds in reality. This is because reality plays a huge part to me in this book. The life that I've lived, not just the stuff I've necessarily enjoyed as fictional, but everything that seems to have been discovered, what our notion of what our potential is. These are interesting things. So why not apply them, not in a heavy-handed way, but why not use some of those ideas to, help generate ideas in a book in a way that's story-based, that's narrative-led, character-led, but it's not about, all right, this book now it's going to be about a bunch of people in a lab or something like that.
But it's also extremely fast-paced and actiony.
Well, this is interesting to me as well because the action, I'd say, maybe dominates the quieter moments anyway. There are a lot of quiet moments, but they're more of the kind of the salt and pepper to the action. Because for me, I grew up on the great action movies of certainly the 80s, but also Star Wars, which got kicked off a little earlier. But
I literally grew up. I was literally a kid.
There was the kind of like the
kid
Star
Wars. I mean, not the Travis.
But there was some more the family friendly ones, but also I got into the kind of the 18 rated, or as Americans say hard R, I think, rated movies, stuff like Predator, all the Schwarzenegger movies and, the equivalent action movies, which, probably no 12-year-old really should be watching it, but it's inevitable that you're going to because, you like those kinds of movies, those kind of stories. And those things, some people at the time would have said this stuff will damage you, but
I like Predator and I really like Terminator.
RoboCop,
Terminator 2, but
RoboCop, Aliens. I mean, this stuff. We were unbelievably lucky to get these kinds of material out and get access to this.
But it all soaks into your mind. I think there's a lot of influence there. That's subtle.
So there's all of this in Mortal Worlds, but what makes it original to me is that it kind of it takes some of the tropes of this but it applies it to stuff which maybe these other movies never even considered about, because these characters, they're superheroes, if you like. They're kind of super soldiers. They have different abilities. Some of them are kind of like from these light bearers from the ancient past. They're more advanced. Maybe their abilities aren't.
And also the Scryer and Archer.
Specifically, what I'm talking about. These beings who originally banished. This dark god Rhizor back in the mists of time.
One of whom died for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is of course a really old trope, but what I think that is interesting with Mortal Worlds, what it does with it, is that it allows the reader to be among the people, the protagonists who are facing this being, in a way that you would get to discover along with them.
Because you can identify, because human beings can identify with the paradoxes and with the problems and with the constant. How do we defend? How do we beat this?
They're kind of trying to wrap their heads around the idea that there's this prophecy as well. That apparently there always has been. They've dug it up. They found out, these people dealt with it and prophesized it long ago, and also its disciples also insisted in their prophecies that this thing is going to be the end. It's going to be the final kind of phase of the universe. It's the final product. How it's all going to shape out. This is the kind of like the diamond that all the coal has been slowly, accreting into. Of course, the diamond is entirely hostile to anything that isn't completely, in its eyes, flawless, which means free will. So free will is out. The only people who at any time for the ones who have kind of like sold their souls to it utterly, giving us said, you can take mine as long as you are favourable to me, because you're so powerful that your victory is inevitable.
But they don't
certain.
Understand the sacrifice that is.
This whole idea who assassinates the assassin. It's another kind of like it's another very classical kind of kind of a Joseph Campbell type of scenario. It's like, what kind of characters does your hero encounter? And of course, there's always the kinds who like perhaps the people who were were good, but something along their lives made them kind of like sell their souls to the devil. That kind of scenario. And is there enchant back for them? Is there redemption? Yeah.
For anyone who's seen David Lynch films.
If anyone who's seen Mortal Worlds, I wish. Anyone who's seen Mulholland Drive will know, what that's from. Really amazing film. I've got to say, David Lynch has also been a massive influence on us. In recent years, his body of work has been nothing.
Oh, completely. There's no director out there like him, particularly with the psychological
he's not everybody's.
manipulation.
He's not everybody's deal, but his choices in terms of doing things so utterly his own way without kind of consideration.
No compromise. That's where Mortal Worlds, because that's what we've done, particularly you, because you've done all the artwork.
Yeah.
No compromise. You've given all your spare time to this book.
Some people joked about, David Lynch, who's offered the chance to direct Return of the Jedi, and it would have been so weird and off kilter. It would have never
I
worked.
remember that story. I did tell them that story because that's weird.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess Star Wars fans will, or Lynch fans will know well about this. But just summarizing really quick, he was invited by George Lucas, and I think 82 or something, to go to his ranch, and I think they went out for a salad. That was apparently the only thing that Lucas was interested in. Kind of offer it. The restaurants were only offering that on the menu.
Oh no, David Lynch would hate that.
Lynch was kind of like, he had a headache as it was, and not even being able to kind of like, satisfy his stomach, I suppose, was another nail in the coffin for him in terms of Lucas selling this idea. He didn't want to do it. He'd had to trawl around, the Lucasfilm kind of, workshops and seen all these Return of the Jedi Muppets.
He's very hands-on with this.
He saw all the kind of aliens and stuff, and he was kind of scratching his head thinking, George, I really think that you should do this. You direct this, because this is your vision. This is your unique vision. He didn't think dig what Lucas was doing, but what he really respected was that he was doing his own thing. He was
They're very similar in that respect, although the visions are different.
The difference being that Lucas was, of course, also completely dedicated to not just seeing his vision made, but actually making money, which is something Lynch was not so much worried about.
It's always been, it's not one of his main drivers, is it, money? But I cannot imagine a Lynchian Star Wars film. But
Dune was the closest I guess anyone will probably ever get to see to what his Star Wars might have looked like. But
some parts of Dune I like, but not others.
But this is the thing. It's really kind of like a quiet taste. It has relatively few fans.
I like the books
film
better than the film.
Yeah, but what I think Lynch would have done is perhaps try, if he decided for whatever reason to take on the job, he would try to make money too. He'd realize it's not just like a passion project now. You're a director who's following a script, perhaps from someone else, and direction and production supervision, and you've got to do your best to not just make it so crazy that nobody gets what it's about and that no one's got anyone to root for or hiss
not
against.
like The Last Jedi then.
So I think it's possible he could have knocked it out of the park. I'd love to think that he could have knocked it out of the park.
That's Marge Simpson's sound where she goes, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I bet you're not the only one that, even listening to this right now. Not necessarily
if
everyone's going to be
stayed this far with us.
Not necessarily everyone's a Lynch fan even listening to this. I appreciate it, but certainly if he had put everything into it, he is a man of great imaginative, capability, and and he gets the job done. He would have Yeah, he would have certainly done something interesting, I think. Now, we're going to wrap this one up, but we're going to come up with part
Which
two
we
very
probably
shortly.
didn't address most of the things we said we did because we're still really new to this video stuff, and it starts to sound a bit like a conversation. Maybe it would be better live streaming. But bear with us if we're a bit vague and and ahry. I hope you listened. I hope you enjoyed it and our thoughts. And please check out Mortal Worlds, our campaign page, our Indiegogo. Still got 7 days to go. We're hoping for that last tsunami, as it's been so slow, and there have been reasons why we haven't done it.
Yeah, and check out my Twitter, Michael_Anden. It has got loads of updates and exclusive artwork, and you get to see what everybody else is making of this, see what else is actually preying on my mind, which I'm retweeting. I hope it's going to be something that will keep you really on the edge of your seats for more to come. Let's see what.
Just before we go, do please hit that subscribe button. We've really just started out. We're a really young channel, and
hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll be bringing you a lot more content. So please stick around and follow us.
We'll check patient. You soon.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot to anybody who listened.
All the best. Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.